hints of the next update, new Minecraft look, new server rules, and better copper golems. Hello there, Ray here. We got a brand new Java snapshot today. This is 25W34A. But last week they announced that they wouldn't come out with any big new features for the next full release, which is going to be 1.21.9 for Java, also called the Fall Update, although there is not an official name for it. But they did say we're going to continue to get snapshots, so that's why we got one today. And these are going to be fixing minor bugs and other problems that are related to the new features that were introduced in these prior snapshots. But if this is going to all come in the fall update, you'd expect it to come after fall actually comes to at least the northern hemisphere, which means we'd have to at least wait all the way to September 22nd, because that's the official start of fall, which is over an entire month that we'd have to wait. So I don't know if they're just going to do bug fixes in the meantime or what, but what do you think? And don't forget to leave a like on the video, and let's get into all the changes today. We got a new panoramic for this next update. You can see it takes place in a village. We got copper golems running about. Here's a normal one. We got oxidized one. Some of the golems have frozen into blocks as they're missing the little shadows underneath them, which entities have, but blocks do not. But like most panoramas, you can see there's actually 4 little golems placed in a circle all facing outwards. This is definitely done by a player, which is pretty unusual for panoramas because typically it's kind of just a natural scene, although copper golems aren't really natural to the game. Unless you have an Enderman pick up a carved pumpkin and then move it into a trial chambers to spawn one of these in. But once in a while you'll see in a panoramic where they'll come in and they'll tweak something that isn't in the natural game. Now it does make sense that this takes place in a village because the iron golems can hand these copper golems these poppies and they can put them on their heads, although it doesn't appear that any of the copper golems in this panorama actually have this on their head. So that would have been kind of cool if they would have done that. But what do you think of the new main menu panorama? They added in a new code of conduct feature for servers. You turn on this new feature by coming to your server properties folder. Then right here where it says codes of conducts, its default is false. Set this to true. I'll go ahead and save it. And then in the same folder that you have the server properties, you want to make a new folder called code of conduct. And then inside of that, you want to have a text file. And then this is where you can put your server rules. So now when I join the testing server, a pop-up's supposed to pop up and it shows you the rules and you have to agree to them before you can actually continue on the server. But for some reason, I must be doing it wrong because nothing popped up for me. But this would just make it so that everybody kind of understands what the rules are of the server before continuing. They also made some minor tweaks to the copper golems when it comes to their block states, the items, as well as the entities themselves. Hopefully these changes fix all the weird bugs that we've seen when it comes to copper golems and their pathfinding inside of storage systems, but it seems like they might have to do some more fixing in order to get these guys working properly. They'll now correctly activate chests like trap chests so that when it's open it actually puts off a signal so we can detect them inside the chest now. They'll also now be able to fit through doors so that they can actually pathfind and do stuff in your house and come back out. So now if we look at their hitboxes, we can see they are not like a full 1x1x1 block, but have been made, so now they're the same width as a player, but they also changed their height and they actually made them taller than 1 block. So you cannot place a block over top of their head anymore. I wonder if they did this intentionally so we can't stick them in small little holes where they have to work in our little storage systems. So you either have to place a slab over their head, give them a little bit of room to move around, or you have to come in and lower the floor with some mud or soul sand. But they said they did this change so that they wouldn't get stuck inside of certain blocks, although it might be for other reasons too. When given invisibility, the copper golem's eyes will no longer just pop out of their head and be glowing, floating like that, so they're hidden. But you can still see their items they're holding, as well as if they have something on their head like a poppy. But the guy that has a copper statue on his head looks kind of spooky, like he's a floating around ghost that's moving around. And placing the copper statue on your head will no longer put it upside down with the legs sticking upwards, which means you'll no longer be able to do this weird looking trick with one copper golem wearing a statue item on top of its head. It makes it look like they're doing a circus trick with one balancing on top of the other one. The statue block will now also be centered instead of being a little bit off. As you can see before, it was touching this edge, but it was really far from touching this side. And when throwing the statue down as an item, you can see it was way too large, so they made it the same size as other items. They also fixed the item in the inventory so it won't get cut off as before. You can see the very top of it's missing. A few guys mentioned that the copper golems and their noises were kind of annoying, especially when there's large amounts of them. So they actually made the copper sorting noises quieter, and they also made it so that you won't hear these guys if you're more than 12 blocks away. Now, ever since fledgling tables came out, you could go spectator mode and right click them and it opened up like a crafting table. But they finally removed this today, so it makes you think that maybe they're going to come out with a function for the fletching table in the next full release, which they did say it's going to be a big one. What function do you think the fletching table should have? There was also a similar problem with the smithing table before they eventually gave it a function in the game. Speaking of the next update, they also seem to be fixing bugs related to dimensional things, which makes me think that we're getting a new dimension, because during the snapshot they accidentally introduced some interdimensional sound problems. which they came in to fix, but it makes you wonder how they accidentally broke this in the first place. Maybe they're working with something to do with dimensions. Other things related to dimensions that they fixed again was like bees ignoring overworld weather, and frosted ice continue to stay freezed in the end dimension. What do you think the next update is going to be? The sky flashes that appear in the sky, their flashing also can be disabled now with accessibilities in the same location where you disable lightning flashes. And if we read this, it says prevents lightning bolts or other environmental effects from making the sky flash. It's super vague and makes you think that they're going to come out with something else that's also going to be in the sky, that's also going to be flashing, which kind of hints towards a new dimension. Because they could have just said lightning bolts and end flashes. But they're keeping it kind of open-ended, so they can definitely add in more different things and it would still apply. The weird bug from last snapshot where if you would log off while being in creative in the air, and then you log back in again, it would forget that you were flying and it would make you fall to the ground. This problem was actually noticed by one of the Mojang developers right as the snapshot was being released, but they didn't have enough time to actually fix it, which is a really cool story to hear. And this Mojang developer Fisk also joined my snapshot testing server, which is open to all of my viewers. And we did a lot of funny stuff. This was all during my Twitch live stream as well. I do them 4 times a week with their starting times here. So swing by and say hello because you never know what's going to be going on. Now in a previous snapshot, they made it so that entities and their rendering will create a lot less lag, which I can really notice, especially in this world, where I have all the different entities in the game sorted by their height as well as their width. I'm actually getting over 100 frames per second, but they now do the same thing when it comes to block entities as well as items. Now block entities are any type of block that has extra data. These are typically ones that cannot be pushed in Java Edition. And items are like the little things that you throw on the ground. So this should greatly help with a lag, especially in single player, where you have to deal with frame rendering lag. Plus, this should also help if you have a whole bunch of items that are on the ground. They shouldn't drop your frames as low now. I think everybody's really happy about these optimization features that they're adding into the game. As a lot of people complain that they keep adding things, but the game just keeps getting laggier and laggier. But what do you think? You can no longer use your debug stick to move the items from the center of the shelf to the bottom ledge. This was done because people really liked it in the center to do different types of cool builds with these shelves and items inside them. But some people still like the items sitting on the edge of the shelf, make it look like an actual shelf like in a house. So the way they resolved this is that you could have used the debug stick to move it from the center to make them sit on the ledge. This no longer works, but instead this was moved to the set block command, where there's now a property called align items to bottom, which should now move the items up and down. In 1.21.6, when you would shoot an arrow, it would forget who its owner was when the player would leave the server. Now, once again, we'll remember who owns the arrow, so if the arrow hits something, it will apply its property to it. So if the arrow killed somebody, it would be considered being killed from you. It fixed a really old bug that was made way back in 2012, and it was actually one of the first 400 bugs made in the game, and that is here in the world selection. The names can end up getting so long that they get cut off on the edge. Sweet berries were accidentally giving too many berries when harvested. This was a snapshot problem only bug and they reverted it. Now when placing maps into an item frame, they always had the hitbox to remove them only the size of the actual item frame, despite the map being larger. So if you were trying to hit it on the edge, you just end up breaking the block behind it. Now as soon as you put the map into the item frame, it's going to change the hitbox to make it the full size. And now they just came out with the B version of the snapshot. When it's the A one, it just means it's the first one of the week. B means it's the second one, but they don't come out with the B letter or later letters unless there is some major problems that somehow normally would like crash the game. So they come in with these hot fixes. For this one, they came in and they fixed it because there was a connectivity issue with Rails. But at the same time, they also made it so that glowing items and displays will actually glow. Now come join me as I explore the new snapshot, and we'll be live streaming over at my Twitch, which you can find linked down below. Much thanks to my monthly supporters, and I'll see you guys all over there. Bye-bye!